On May 8, 2026, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office quietly published its first tranche of declassified UAP case files under a program called Pursue. No press conference, no Rose Garden ceremony, just documents, appearing on a government website like weather data. 2 weeks later, a second tranche, then a third scheduled for June 12th. 3 drops across 5 weeks. This wasn't a document dump. It was a cadence, structured, deliberate, institutional. And for anyone paying close attention, the architecture of that release schedule reveals more than the files themselves. Pursue, the program for UAP research, study, and evaluation, operates under authorities established by the National Defense Authorization Acts of fiscal years 2023 and 2024. Those laws, driven largely by Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Marco Rubio and Representatives Mike Turner and Tim Burchett, didn't just create AARO. They mandated systematic review of historical UAP records and gave the office subpoena adjacent authorities to pull files from across the intelligence community. The rolling release model is itself significant. Rather than a single disclosure event, Pursue treats transparency as an ongoing process. Each tranche reviewed, redacted where legally required, and published on a schedule. This is bureaucratic infrastructure for disclosure, not a one-time political gesture. Understanding Pursue requires understanding the 3 bodies now governing UAP policy. At the operational center sits AARO itself, currently led by Dr. Jon Kosloski, who replaced Sean Kirkpatrick in 2023. AARO investigates cases, manages census, and produces classified and unclassified reports for Congress. Flanking AARO are 2 very different bodies. The first is the Science Advisory Council, chaired by Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, announced in early 2026 as a panel of external scientists tasked with reviewing AARO's methodology and analytical frameworks. The second is the Interagency UAP Governance Board, whose membership draws from the intelligence community and Department of Defense, and whose proceedings are classified. One body is deliberately open, the other is deliberately closed. That's not a contradiction. It's a design choice. The Science Advisory Council's mandate is explicitly limited to unclassified information. Loeb's team can examine AARO's open-source data, its published methodologies, its census specifications where unclassified, but not the raw intelligence behind closed cases. Why wall off your own scientific advisors? The official rationale involves security clearance logistics and preserving independent analysis. But the structural effect is unmistakable. The Council can validate AARO's process without ever confirming or denying what AARO has actually found. This creates a legitimacy layer, credentialed scientists endorsing the framework, while the substantive conclusions remain compartmented within the governance board. Whether this serves transparency or manages it depends entirely on your trust in the underlying institutions. On June 5, 2026, AARO published its latest report to Congress. The headline number: approximately 40% of investigated cases remained unresolved. That figure demands careful parsing. Unresolved does not mean unexplainable. It means insufficient data to reach a determination. AARO has consistently emphasized that many unresolved cases suffer from sensor limitations. A single infrared camera angle, no radar correlation, no metadata. Former AARO Director Kirkpatrick made this point repeatedly. Absence of explanation is not evidence of anomalous origin. But the inverse is equally true. Absence of a prosaic explanation is not evidence that one exists. 40% is not a mystery count. It's a measurement of our analytic ceiling. And that ceiling is itself the story. The most important question about PURSUE isn't what's in the released files. It's the ratio. How much came out versus how much remains. Congressional testimony from 2023 and 2024 referenced decades of UAP-related records scattered across DoD, the intelligence community, DOE, and legacy programs. The 2024 NDAA's provisions specifically referenced historical records dating to the 1940s. 3 tranches across 5 weeks, even generous estimates of several hundred files, would represent a fraction of this archive. The rolling release model implicitly acknowledges this volume. You don't build a recurring publication cadence for a small collection. PURSUE's architecture assumes years of future releases. That's the quiet part. The infrastructure itself tells us the backlog is enormous. There's a fundamental tension between how disclosure feels in public and how it actually works in government. The Grush testimony in July 2023 was electric. A decorated intelligence officer alleging crash retrieval programs before cameras. That's political disclosure. Dramatic, contested, personality-driven. PURSUE represents something different. Institutional disclosure is slow, procedural, and boring by design. It operates through classification review boards, interagency coordination, and legal compliance frameworks. It doesn't depend on a single whistleblower's courage or a single legislator's term in office. This is why 2026 matters, not for what has been revealed, but for what has been built. The 3-tier structure is designed to outlast any single administration. The Interagency UAP Governance Board is the least discussed and arguably most consequential element. Its members reportedly include senior representatives from offices that have historically resisted UAP transparency, precisely the agencies that legacy program allegations point toward. Placing these agencies inside the governance structure is either a mechanism for accountability or a mechanism for control. Optimists see integration, bringing potential gatekeepers into a framework with congressional reporting requirements. Skeptics see captured oversight, the fox designing the henhouse security system. The board's classified status means we cannot currently evaluate which interpretation is correct. That ambiguity is, itself, a disclosure problem. Here is what the PURSUE architecture tells us when we read it honestly. The US government has built a permanent, 3-tiered structure for managing UAP information. It has begun releasing classified material on a schedule. It has simultaneously created a scientific legitimacy layer that cannot access the most sensitive data, and a governance board that can access it but operates in the dark. 40% of cases remain unresolved. The declassified files represent an unknown fraction of the total archive, and the rolling release model assumes this process will continue for years. None of this confirms extraordinary claims, but it confirms something nearly as significant: the institutional consensus that there is enough unresolved UAP material to justify building permanent infrastructure around it. 2026 is not the year we got answers. It's the year the US government admitted, through architecture, if not through words, that the questions are worth asking indefinitely.